This is a spin-off from the video I made right before this. The video I made right before this was called Our Planets Archangels. Go watch that first really quick because that will help set the stage for what I'm talking about here. That video is great just for general ancient, electric universe science, etc. But it's going to be important when we start looking at this prophecy crap. All right, before you press the stop button, hold on. This is not a video about trying to convince you that prophecies are real or that I believe in prophecies or anything like that. So hold on. This channel is generally dedicated to, historical fact, critical thinking, etc. So why the hell am I talking about prophecy? So technically this happened in the past, so it's technically history, but the prophecies that I read from this woman actually appear to directly correlate to electric universe principles. So let's do this. Let's take this prophecy, let's take this talk and use it as a thought experiment. Let's take this and use it as a practice to critical thinking. Never forget that one of the important tools in our critical thinking belt is being able to look at an idea and take it seriously, no matter how ridiculous the idea may initially seem to you. Like, that's probably one of the greatest marks of a great thinker, is if you have that capability to look at something that is generally seen as, ridiculous, dumb, take it and think about it seriously. That does not mean you have to adhere to it. That does not mean you are following it and believing in it. It just means you are taking it seriously and applying your critical thinking tools to it. So let's do that with this. I came across something in my studies that I could not ignore. So on this channel, everything I do with respect to our ancient historical studies, I correlate it all to the electric universe and catastrophism, because that scientifically answers a lot of our problems and our questions when we deal with the mysteries of ancient history. Not only does the electric universe and catastrophism begin to fill in the gaps scientifically with respect to ancient history, but those two subjects also start to fill in the gaps and make other religious people's texts make sense, right? So the Popol Vuh, the Vedas, the Bible, etc. A lot of these stories suddenly start to have some sort of weight. We find that there could possibly be more credibility to all of these ancient texts from all over the world, from all kinds of cultures and religions, that mainstream takes as, fantastical or just straight up garbage. Instead, we start to see that this stuff may be legit. Now, what the hell does all of this have to do with prophecies? So in my studies now, I have started diving into like the 14th, 15th, 16th century, etc. That area, because there's, interestingly enough, that looks like there were some cosmological events that took place around these periods of time that really affected a lot of stuff. Anyway, that's a different story. But in the course of learning about this 1500-ish time period, I ran into Mother Shipton's prophecies. And when I started to read her prophecies, at first, you're kind of like, all right, whatever. And then there's a couple of things that she calls out, which shockingly resemble instances of events that potentially happened in our past. And these are proven using the sciences of the electric universe. Before I get to that, let's cover who she is, so you guys don't think I'm totally crazy. Let me lay the foundation for this woman, and then we'll go into what she said and what caught my eye. Because it's amazing. Like, holy crap. This was actually pretty impressive. Alright, so Mother Shipton seems to be a semi-interesting person. So she was like born in a cave in Knaresborough, Yorkshire. Knaresborough? Is that a place? Knaresborough? Yorkshire? Anyway, she was born in a cave, like people are, back then, I guess. And she was reputed to be, like, disgustingly ugly. Alright, so you have a deformed baby coming out, apparently. The woman who delivered her spoke of a smell of sulfur and a great crack of thunder as the child came into the world. Right? The baby was born misshapen and huge, apparently. Some thought her father was the devil. Her mother gave her up at age 2 and went to live in a convent for the rest of her life. So her beginning is kind of messed up. It's got that, mystique to it that prophets always do. So apparently, she exhibited prophetic and psychic abilities from an early age. She was writing prophecies in the form of poems, not much different than the cryptic quatrains of Nostradamus. Which is also another problem. I don't get into Nostradamus. I don't buy into that stuff. So, yeah. Just to make the point clear that I'm not into prophecies, all right? Now, one of the problems with, well, there's a lot of problems, I guess. One of the problems with the Mother Shipton prophecies is that it's generally acknowledged that she was probably a myth. So already we're into the weirdness. Anything back in the 15th century, that whole time period, man, is messed up for information. That's the whole, Scaliger area. Ugh, man, everything is messed up down there. Messed up back down there. Whatever. You know what I mean. Messed up in the past. Everything's screwed up. All right, so a lot of people think she was largely a myth. And we find a lot of her prophecies may have been composed by others after her death and after the events they predicted. But once again, all of that information is also there's nothing solid there either. So whoever the hell Mother Shipton was, ultimately, we don't know. That entire era is just jacked up, man. Like, there's no... Getting, real solid information from this point in time is a joke. Alright, so anyway, Mother Shipton. So, her prophecies were apparently recorded in a series of diaries, but the first published book of her work did not appear until 1641. And the most noted work by Richard Head, I don't know who he is, came out in 1684. Richard Head, oh my god, okay. Head later admitted to inventing almost all of Shipton's biographical details. So, who the hell she was, I don't know. Nobody knows. It could all be BS. But here's the other side. He might be lying about making up the details for whatever reason. See, that's an interesting point right there. When somebody would probably hear that about Mother Shipton, Head admitting that he made up all the details, you'd be like, oh, well, he admitted it. We move on. Are you sure that he admitted it? Have you gone back to check what evidence is there that he actually did make this stuff up? Can you prove it? Now, we probably can't, and I'm not going to go study Mother Shipton stuff, so I don't care enough. It's just something interesting to remember that when you come across something that states something from a period of time that is just messed up, and that information coming from that period of time is generally unreliable, just don't forget that. All right, just don't forget that. Just because the outcome sounds like it's locked down and finished, it may very well not be. All right. So anyway, Mother Shipton, we don't know who she was, or we don't. I mean, there's a lot of crap there, but the works exist. Okay, these poems exist. And at the very latest, they don't come into the zeitgeist until 1684. Now, the date 1684 is important. Now, she wrote all kinds of other kinds of prophecies, local prophecies, all kinds of stuff like that. We're not going to worry about any of that stuff. What we are going to be interested in for this thought experiment and for this historical thing that apparently happened, we're going to look into her poem that predicted the future. And this is what caught my attention. I'm going to read chunks of the poem. I'm not going to read the whole thing. It's short anyway, but just look up Mother Shipton. This stuff is all over the place. It's not hard to find. But what I want to do is I'm going to read a few of her, I guess they're quatrains. I'll read a few of them to kind of set the stage of the kind of stuff that she's talking about. And then I'll read the section that really caught my eye. Finally, right? It only took us like 8-9 minutes to get here. All right, so here's the sections. Let's set the stage. Around the world, men's thoughts will fly, quick as the twinkling of an eye, and waters shall great wonders do. How strange, and yet it shall come true. Through towering hills proud men shall ride, no horse or ass move by his side. Beneath the water men shall walk, shall ride, shall sleep, shall even talk. And in the air men shall be seen, in white and black and even green. So right here, just in these few sentences, and by the way, this stuff, It doesn't always rhyme great, so just bear with me. I'll do my best. But yeah. All right, so one of the things here that this is talking about, and remember the latest that this could have been written is 1684. So when we start to see lines like, around the world men's thoughts will fly, quick as the twinkling of an eye, that could be very easily interpreted as the internet. And to make the point even more interesting is that if she was truly a psychic, some sort of true prophet, then she wouldn't use, if she was talking about like everybody having a psychic capability and they were transmitting their thoughts, just mentally, just in case you were thinking that, she would have said that. She understands psychic abilities, right? If she's going to be a prophet, if she's seeing these things, she understands that, right? So she doesn't use the term psychically or anything like that. She doesn't know what to say. She just knows that people's thoughts are transmitted across the planet instantly, right? That's a good allusion to the internet. Now, I'm not saying that is the internet, but hey, this is just one little area that starts to talk about the time that we may live in. She goes on to also describe the possibility of cars, right? Through towering hills, proud men shall ride. No horse or ass move by his side, right? People driving around in the mountains on their cars. They're using cars. They're not using horses or anything like that. Beneath the water, men shall walk, shall ride, shall sleep, shall even talk, right? You have scuba diving. You have underwater bases. You have people talking through radios. That's what we do nowadays. It's not a big deal. To her, she wouldn't know what's going on, so she just kind of states it as plainly as possible. The concept of scuba diving doesn't exist for her. And then in the air, men shall be seen in white and black and even green. Easy to think that those are airplanes. We have airplanes of all colors, right? Green military planes, black spy planes, 8 bajillion passenger white airplanes. So we have all kinds of different colors for different airplanes. Did she see kind of where we live now, right? So that's just interesting. Let's set the stage a little bit, but let's keep going. Let me set more of the stage. She goes on. In water, iron then shall float, as easy as a wooden boat. Here is she talking about our modern ships. They're all made out of metal nowadays. She would have only known metal ships back in the day. Today, that's how we build our ships. Did she see, cruise ships, battleships, tankers, etc.? Once again, it's an interesting line. The point of everything I've read so far is to just kind of set the stage to show that at the very least, she is very imaginative about what was going to happen in the future. Even if this whole situation is BS, it's not bad BS. And it's important to note that at this point, that prophecy doesn't pertain to our time directly. There's been metal ships and planes around for a while now. So it's not that we're living in the exact time that she's talking about. I just make that distinction because everybody always thinks they live in the time of prophecy. All right, so this stuff that she's seeing, she could have seen this in the 60s, right? This kind of stuff was going on back then or even earlier. So we don't know the exact time. We just know that we're alive around the time she's talking about. Now, she goes on to maybe actually talk about the time we are in right now. So she says, "For in those wondrous far-off days, the women shall adopt a craze, to dress like men and trousers wear, and to cut off their locks of hair. They'll ride astride with brazen brow, as witches do on a broomstick now." Right? So we're starting to see the genders being mixed up now, and to her, that's got to be weird. Of course, it's weird for her. So she has no point of reference for anything like that happening. So that's the best she could describe. That's kind of like what we see going on nowadays. It gets even more interesting. There'll be a sign for all to see. Be sure that it will certain be. Then love shall die and marriage cease, and nations wane as babes decrease. We are literally seeing that right now in the time period we live in. So that's a possibility. I'm not saying it can't happen to an even worse degree in the future, but we do not have any point of reference like what's going on today in the past. I don't know of anything to any degree of what we see nowadays that happened, in her time that would have been in the future. So it could be beyond us right now. It's possible. But at the very least, we can say, hey, we do see this going on right now. Then she goes to elaborate even further. And wives shall fondle cats and dogs, and men live much the same as hogs. So she's seeing something that's interesting that we are definitely experiencing in today's day and age. So I read this just to kind of point out that it's interesting that she would even come up with something like this. Like, why would a prophet come up with something like this? She could have come up with all kinds of interesting future stuff, but she comes up with this. So this is why, this was the first thing I found interesting. So this kind of piqued my interest. But then she goes on. When pictures seem alive with movements free, when boats like fishes swim beneath the sea, when men like birds shall scour the sky, then half the world, deep drenched in blood, shall die. Now, I don't know what the last two lines necessarily relate to, but the first two, it seems like she's calling out TV, movies, motion pictures, etc. And then she's also now calling out, submarines. So that's also interesting. Now, could she have imagined all of this? Yeah, okay, sure, why not? I don't know. I'm not back then. I have no idea. She could have. Who knows? But it's interesting. All of the stuff that I've just read so far is at the very least something that is interesting. I know I've said that like 10 times, but it is. It's something that, this is what started to grab my attention. Right? This person in the 1500s is writing stuff like this. All right, then this is where it starts to get weird, and this is where the electric universe kinds of things and catastrophism starts to come into play. So here she goes on. For those who live the century through, in fear and trembling this shall do. Flee to the mountains and the dens, to bog and forest and wild hens. For storms will rage and oceans roar, when Gabriel stands on sea and shore. And as he blows his wondrous horn, old worlds die and new are born. This was the what the F moment right here for me. Why, out of all the archangels that she could have called upon in her prophecy, does she call on Gabriel? The reason why I wanted you to watch the video called Our Planets, Archangels is because of this. Is she saying that in our future, we are going to once again run into Mars? That blew my mind, because why even do this? She literally describes the kinds of catastrophes that would happen if once again Mars was to make another approach and we were to deal with the electrical trade-off. It gets even more interesting. She then goes on to say, a fiery dragon will cross the sky 6 times before this earth shall die. Mankind will tremble and frightened be, for the 6th heralds in this prophecy. For 7 days and 7 nights, man will watch this awesome sight. The tides will rise beyond their ken, to bite away the shores, and then the mountains will begin to roar, and earthquakes split the plain to shore. And the flooding waters rushing in will flood the lands with such a din that mankind cowers in muddy fen and snarls about his fellow men. He bares his teeth and fights and kills, and secrets food in secrets hills. And ugly in this fear he lies, to kill marauders, thieves, and spies. Man flees in terror from the floods, and kills and rapes and lies in blood. And spilling blood by mankind's hands will stain and bitter many lands. And when the dragon's tail is gone, man forgets and smiles and carries on, to apply himself too late, for mankind has earned deserved fate. His masked smile, his false grandeur, will serve the gods their anger stir, and they will send the dragons back to light the sky. His tail will crack upon the earth and rend the earth, and man shall flee king, lord, and serf. But slowly they are routed out to seek diminishing waterspout, and men will die of thirst before the oceans rise to mount the shore, and lands will crack and rend anew. You think it strange, it will come true. This section of the poem is what made my jaw drop to the floor. This is insane. She is basically describing the exact kind of events that would take place if we were to once again run into any of the planetary bodies as we have in the past. She calls it out to the T. She even names the planet that we will run into. She talks about the dragon flying through the sky that we see for 7 days and 7 nights. That would be the plasma effect. That would be the plasma trail coming off of the planet, right? The oceans rising, the lands cracking, all of that stuff happens because once again, the planet's electrical connections will cause these crazy events to go down, right? So she even mentioned, I mean, this is the insane part. This is what I mean, why would she talk like this? She could have predicted the future and talked in any other way, but she is very, very specific when it comes to the events that take place here. And all of these events perfectly match what we know can happen if a planetary body flies by another planetary body. I love the fact that she even talks about Gabriel's horn. One of the things that we know that the ancients, not even just the ancients, people just, a few centuries ago, when they would do their paintings, we know that when large planetary bodies would pass by, they would make the sound of like a trumpet or a horn. And that's why you see in old paintings, you see like angels up in the sky blowing horns. Why are they blowing horns? Have you ever wondered that? Well, that's what the artists are trying to represent. They can literally hear the planetary bodies roaring by them. It affects the entire atmosphere or the general area to such a degree they can hear the damn planet. That is just crazy to me. Why does she talk like this? She is literally describing all of the details that you would see if the planetary body was screaming right by us. She also calls out the possibility of people building, bunkers to get ready for such an event. Now, I'm not buying into prophecy, and I have no reason at all to believe that Mars is about to be knocked out of its orbit and, start heading towards Earth again. I have no idea if anything like that is going to happen, and I do not see any evidence for that right now. But it's not impossible. It's 100% in the realm of science. If other people on this planet already know all of these sciences at higher levels, they may already be preparing for something like this. And so when she talks about the secret areas that they build, they're basically building bomb shelters. They're building shelters that will get them away, hopefully, from the cataclysm. She is essentially calling out preppers. I don't know if there were preppers back in the day. I don't know if that was a common thing, but we know that exists now. It's not a bad idea either. But it is definitely a larger industry now than I doubt it's been in quite some time. And she calls it out. So she is describing the night sky and the day sky at this point. You have the planetary body going across the sky. It's dragging a plasma tail behind it. That's the dragon, quote unquote. And then she goes on to say this. This is very interesting to me. So when the dragon's tail is gone, man forgets and smiles and carries on. That is exactly what happened to our ancestors. It's exactly why we're in the state we are now. If these incredible cataclysms happened in our ancient past, which right now we have all the scientific evidence in the world to believe that something like this has happened, to where we have indeed had encounters with planetary bodies very, very, very close by, to the point to where it literally changed all of history, changed everything. And if you're new to the electric universe and Velikovsky and catastrophism, a lot of this stuff is going to sound crazy, right? You're just telling me that Venus did a flyby of Earth? Dude, you lost your mind. What are you talking about? But that's the thing. It's scientifically accurate, and all of our ancestors describe it. But if these events truly did happen in our past, there would be repercussions. Millions of people would have died, and all of our ancestors say exactly that. When these events took place, entire civilizations went down, right? You know, you can talk about Atlantis in here. You can talk about Mu. You can talk about Hyperborea. There's all kinds of things that absolutely appears to have happened and would have happened if all of these effects took place when a planetary body screams by. So once this happens, though, if you're losing tens of millions or hundreds of millions of people, I mean, the reality is all of our ancestors have some sort of story basically saying the end of the world happened and there were very few people left. If something like that happened, like if an event happened today, and let's just say 8 billion people died, and let's just say there's only like 100,000 people left scattered across the planet, you can rebuild, but it's going to take time. Guess what is also going to happen? You have now lost billions upon billions of people's skills and memories that could have transmitted this information. You've also lost the logistical capability to help make sure you could transmit all of this information. You would quite literally forget your past, and that is exactly what has happened to us. That is precisely what's going on, and she calls it out. That's what I find just unbelievably amazing. She calls all of this stuff out. There is no reason for her to know any of this stuff happened in the past. At this point in time, in the 1500s, in Britain, there's none of this is known. Like, they don't know about the Maya. They don't know what happened to Atlantis. They don't know about any of these civilizations that were wiped out. They're not well known, if known at all, right? Very new stuff, even if they know about them in any regard. So here she is talking about this, talking about the real after effects of what would happen. She goes on with more, and I love this part. And they will send the dragon back. To light the sky, his tail will crack upon the earth and rend the earth. And man shall flee, king, lord, and serf. She is literally describing the thunderbolts that would happen once the planets get too close to one another and they have to equalize their charge. Earth, if all of this is correct, back in our past, and we have the scars on the planet here to prove it, and so does Mars. Mars has like the most, Valles Marineris is like the most amazing electrical scar you can imagine. All right, Mars has it and Earth has it. How does she know that there would be a cracking of a tail? In this case, it would be a lightning bolt. She would see Mars's lightning bolt striking Earth. Why would she even guess at this? Why even say this? What's the point? Why come up with this? So it's very interesting. It gives me pause. Is this person really seeing like the future? Or hell, as far as I know, maybe she's seeing the past. I don't know. But the fact that she knows this information so precisely is just weird. The dragon part is amazing because that's where the dragon culture comes from. Everybody saw that plasma event in the sky across the planet. You couldn't miss it. That's why all those ancient cultures have dragon mythology within their histories. All right, everybody's sitting there trying to find a real life dragon. You don't need to. You can stop right now. What they were recording was quite literally what they all saw in the sky, just like they tell you. There was a dragon in the sky. That dragon is literally just a plasma formation. And that's how it looked to them. All right, so she's calling all this out. I don't know, it's mind-blowing to me. But let's keep going. All right, so that's enough of that stuff. But she continues. All right, this is what she says next. And in some far-off distant land, some men, oh such a tiny band, will have to leave their solid mount and span the earth, those few to count. Who survives? Unreadable. Something else was there. They don't know. And then begin the human race again. But not on land already there, but on ocean beds stark, dry, and bare. Not every soul on earth will die, as the dragon's tail goes sweeping by. Not every land on earth will sink, but these will wallow in stench and stink, of rotting bodies, of beast and man, of vegetation crisped on land. But the land that rises from the sea will be dry and clean and soft and free of mankind's dirt, and therefore be the source of man's new dynasty. And those that will live ever fear the dragon's tail for many year. But time erases memory. You think it's strange, but it will be. This is the stuff that gets me. Like, this is what I'm talking about. Like, this woman or this prophet or these people, whoever wrote this, doesn't even matter at this point who wrote it. Whoever wrote this stuff back then, they're literally describing exactly what happened to our ancestors. And I mean, down to a T. It's amazing how she talks about as the dragon's tail goes sweeping by. You know, she's talking about the planet going away, dragging away the plasma trail with it, right? Either the formation is literally going away, it's Mars is going back off into whatever orbit it goes onto, or the plasma trail is shrinking. Either way, she's describing it leaving. The orbits are shifting, they're changing. It doesn't just stay like that. You know, there's no hero going up and slaying this dragon. This dragon, quote unquote, is in the sky. It hangs out for a while, obviously has a negative effect on the earth, screws everybody over, and then eventually leaves. And then there's survivors. I mean, it's amazing. Like, if you're going to tell a prophecy about destruction and death of the earth, why say it like this? You know, what's the point of it? Man, it's crazy stuff. Then she even goes on to talk about more detail. You know, she says not every land on Earth will sink. So when a planet passes by, that pulls on Earth like crazy, displaces the crust or I don't know if, I'll just say the crust for this purpose. But it's going to mess up Earth's crust, right? And it's going to mess up the oceans. And she calls all of this, but she says not everything sinks, but definitely some lands do sink, right? So those of you who are trying to figure out what happened to Atlantis, it certainly seems like the Electric Universe, Velikovsky, etc. have this down. It seems that catastrophism, using Electric Universe principles, has this locked down. When a planet swept by, it took out Atlantis. In this case, what she's talking about in the future, if a planet did indeed fly by, it takes out continents in our time as well. And she even goes on about the details, right? She even mentions how disgusting and stinky the continents are, the dry land is, because there is so much death. There is so much dead, and in tons, not all, but tons of ancient ancestral stories, this is what happens. They talk about how there are bodies everywhere. The bodies are like in the water like cordwood. I forgot which text talks about that. Because this would be the aftermath of a cataclysmic event like this, right? Even funnier, funny, crazy, insane, whatever. Then she goes on to say, where is it? Blah, 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 blah. Of vegetation crisped on land. So this could probably have two meanings, but it directly relates to the events of the past as well, right? If a lightning bolt hits an area, it chars everything, right? Sennacherib's army, for example, gets charred. What do they get charred by? A lightning bolt. So if a lightning bolt once again passes by Mars and Earth, you're going to have charred vegetation everywhere on land. It's going to be crisped. She even calls that out. Like, why even bother calling that? Why are these details, man? Like, it's just, all right. So, and then she goes on. And this is where things get really interesting. And once again, may also actually sort of correlate to our ancient past as well. And what kind of happened after some of those events. But, hey, let's read this. All right. And before the race is built anew, a silver serpent comes to view, and spew out men of like unknown, to mingle with the earth now grown. Cold from its heat, and these men can enlighten the minds of future man, to intermingle and show them how to live and love, and thus endow the children with the second sight, a natural thing, so that they might grow graceful, humble, and when they do, the golden age will start anew. The dragon's tail is but a sign for mankind's fall and man's decline, and before this prophecy is done, I shall be burned at the stake at one. My body singed, my soul set free. You think I utter blasphemy? You are wrong. These things have come to me. This prophecy will come to be. So you can make whatever you want of that last part. That's a whole other, yeah. But very fascinating. Very fascinating how she calls out. Anyway, that's a whole other story. I just thought this was interesting. I mean, if you guys know anything more about this kind of a situation, I don't even know what to say. Like I said, I don't get into prophecies. I still don't. But this was fascinating. If nothing else, the fact that she is able to recount the effects of what we think happened in catastrophism, for example, with the Mars event in the past or the Venus event in the past. I mean, she nails it, man. I mean, she is right on top of it. And she's saying that she sees this in the future. I don't know. And then, of course, the ending, that's a whole, that's something else. All right, so feel free to critically think on this one. If anybody has any insight to this, I'm actually curious because I don't get into prophecy study. Maybe if anybody else out there has something that they could show me that, I don't know, links something else, I am open-minded to this. This is interesting. That'll do it for Mother Shipton. Don't forget to stay positive, be humble, and ask questions. Like what the hell is this? Ask questions. What is this prophecy? It's a good question. I don't have an answer. All right.